Zen practice, as I mentioned last evening, has many dimensions, and you can practice in many ways in Zen practice. Traditionally, in Japan, there are two major schools, Rinzai and Soto. Rinzai Zen school uses koans, Soto Zen just shikandasa, just sitting. My school, Sambo Kyodan or Sambo Zen, combines both Rinzai and Soto. And so you can practice just sitting or koan practice. And so that is in general, historical. But in actual practice for you, either you can practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is you can focus on the breath and body or just be aware. Be aware, just sit. That's a mindfulness practice. Or also you can practice the so-called samadhi. Samadhi means complete concentration on one point, usually on breath. And so then that means, no more thoughts, no more fantasies, only bare awareness or pure awareness, just awareness. But it needs a long-term practice. When you practice more and more, it will come slowly, thoughts will drop. You are just aware. It's not that important, but it will be helpful when you practice like that. What is more important is mindfulness. Mindfulness, it's a symbol in awareness. It can be open awareness or focused awareness. Open awareness is just you are aware of whatever happens, sounds, emotions, feelings, thoughts, whatever happens you are aware. But aware, come back to awareness. Don't run away with the fantasies or emotions. Just come back. Focused awareness is one-pointed, coming back gently to the breath or to the body or even to a mantra. And then you see mindfulness and samadhi, or the third practice, koan. Koans are, the traditional sort of stories which are made into questions. So koans are very beautiful, but some people do not like koans, but it's all right. But koans help you very much to open your heart and mind, to get insights, and to get the Zen language and so on. I take one koan. I already written a commentary on this koan in one of my books, but I take again, this is a well-known koan. This structure, this Gateless Gate Mumankan is case, that's a story, and a small commentary by the compiler and a verse by him, the story. Master Kutte, whenever he was questioned, just stuck up one finger. At one time he had a young attendant whom a visitor asked, "What is the Zen your master is teaching?" The boy also stuck up one finger. Hearing of this, Kutte cut off the boy's finger with a knife. As the boy was running out screaming with pain, Kutte called to him. When the boy turned his head, Kutte stuck up his finger. The boy was suddenly enlightened. When Kutte was about to die, he said to the assembled monks, "I attained 10 years Zen of one finger. I used it all through my life but could not exhaust it." When he had finished saying this, he died. Woman's commentary. The satori of Kuttei and of the boy attendant are not in the finger. If you really see through these, Tenryu, Kuttei and the boy and you yourself are all run through with one skewer. The poem. Kuttei made a fool of old Tenryu. With a sharp knife he chastised the boy. Korei raised his hand with no effort, and lo, the great rich Mount Ka was split in two. This is looks like a sort of cruel story. Zen sometimes has some stories like this. Kuttei was a monk of the 9th century, Chinese monk. We don't know his name, we don't know much of his story, except that Kuttei was reciting all the time. It is said Kuttei Dharani. Dharani is something like prayer or mantra practice in Buddhism. He was reciting always Kuttei Dharani. So he was called Kuttei. And so he had built a hut in the mountain and he was living there. And he was practicing this practice and people used to visit him. One day a nun by name Jisei. Jisei, my master translates the meaning true world. Sai means world, Ji means true, Jisei. Jisei, true world. And a nun came, entered the hut, and usually a visitor comes to see a master. They remove the hat and the sandals and make prostrations and wait for the master to ask questions. This nun came, didn't remove the hat and sandals, walked around him 3 times, stood in front of him and asked, "Say a turning word, I will receive my hat and sandals and make my prostration." Turning word means a Zen word which comes from your heart of awakening and helps you to awaken the other. Turning. So you turn inside out. Say a turning word. And Kuttei couldn't say anything. Didn't know what to say. And the nun repeated the phrase 3 times. He couldn't answer. And then the nun was walking away. It was getting late in the evening. Finally, Kuttei opened his mouth and said, "Nun, it is getting late. Where are you going? Why don't you stay somewhere here and then go in the morning?" The nun turned again and said, "Say a word, turning word, and I will stay." And Kuttei again couldn't say anything. And the nun walked away. Kuttei was ashamed. And he was thought, I am a monk supposed to be enlightened. I don't even know how to answer a nun. And so he was ashamed. He decided to get away from the mountain and go to some place and see a master and train with them. And in the night, he had a dream. The goddess of that mountain came and told him, "Stay, don't go away. Somebody will come and help you." And so then he was waiting the whole day. I don't know how long he was waiting. Waiting for somebody to come and help him. And a wandering Zen master by name Tenryu, he was walking by along close by the mountain. He heard there was a monk like this and came to see him. And Kuttei told Tenryu the whole story and asked him, "How should I have answered the nun?" And Tenryu put up his own finger. And this gesture suddenly opened his heart and mind, and Kuttei was awakened, you see. Because, Kuttei was sort of waiting earnestly with sort of, expectation. And so this gesture suddenly sort of, his stamped sort of floods sort of broke open. Suddenly was awakened. And that is the story, you see. And then it seems he was using all the questions only this gesture, nothing else. Whatever you ask, what is the Buddha? Just. How do you get awakened? Just this. What is the practice? Just this. He wouldn't talk. Only this gesture all the time. And then he had an attendant, a young boy, and then when the people asked him, how does your master teach? He put up the finger all the time. And Kutai heard of that. And then he called the boy one day, cut hold of his hand, cut out the finger with a knife. And then the boy, of course, screaming with the pain, was running out. And he called him, hey. And the boy turned. Kutai put up a finger. And it is said, the boy was enlightened. And, this whole story, there's two parts here. And then third part is dies. But, the first two parts, that's very important. First, the one finger. Zen uses the so-called, what you call, Koan Sutra. That sutra, talks about one thing is all things are one thing, all are interconnected. This is a very big philosophy, you see. So philosophy, Koan philosophy, you see, or Hawaiian philosophy. And it uses that. So the one finger is Zen, I alone, you see. I alone is not simply the individual self. The whole universe comes up like one reality, see. I alone. But that alone is not enough. This is symbolical. Take it as symbolical story. Whether Kutai really cut off the boy's finger or not, it's a secondary. Maybe he cut off, but it's secondary. But this is also connected with the story, you see. No finger, and then one finger. This is connected with the story. What is no finger? You read in the Heart Sutra now, emptiness is form, form is emptiness. This is the core of the Heart Sutra. Emptiness. Emptiness means nothing at all. Nothing, no individuality, nothing. Everything is gone. That is the meaning of no finger, cutting of the finger. There is no finger. It is emptiness. And then Kutai puts up one finger. It is form. Everything comes out of emptiness. And so this realization, emptiness and form, this story teaches actually sort of, narrative story, dramatic story, teaches this emptiness and form. The question is, how do you realize emptiness? And how do you realize out of emptiness this form? How do you realize emptiness? How do you realize form? Let me say a few words just to explain a little. First, emptiness. Emptiness simply, reality, sort of ultimately everything is empty in the sense you can't grasp. Ultimate reality you can't grasp, you see. I use very often the word mystery. See, something like a mystery. You can't grasp it, you see. But out of this ungraspable reality, everything arises. Form arises. Form means every being. You and the trees and the mountains and the stars, sun, everything arises out of this emptiness. And so Zen teaches, reality ultimately is empty. Empty means no particularity, no form, no word, no concepts, no nothingness. And you must experience, awakening is actually awakening to emptiness. Yourself is emptiness. Emptiness is yourself. Awaken to this dimension, you see. Awaken to this dimension. And then manifest yourself into form. You see, awakening to the dimension, you come into form. Come into form means you are a particular being. But there, You are emptiness, nothing more, you see, nothing, you see. And that dimension, and there is a koan, it's very beautiful, All the koans are all symbolic narrative stories, you see. Koans, where is in the collection of symbol koans I give. The koan is, you see, the 1,000 mountains are covered with snow. One peak alone is not covered. 1,000 mountains are covered with snow. That simply means you have no particularity. There is nothing, you cannot see anything. Everything is white. It shows emptiness, you see. You look around, of course in Europe people can see that. Here you can't see in India. When the snow covers everything is empty, so to say. Nothing at all, no particularity. But one peak is not covered. That is the self coming forth. You see, of course, you have to answer in the koan style, koan answer. For me, for you, just to explain, you can understand, you can philosophize, all those things. But koan answers, you must be concrete, particular, almost like a child, playful. You see, the two levels in the koan. One level is koan, understand the background, history, philosophy. But in the koan answer, be simple, like almost stupid, simply answer literally. That's all koan answers. And so here, understand everything is empty, nothing at all. In this outer emptiness, yourself comes forth. Form comes forth. One peak comes forth. It's the same, this koan, you see. And the finger is cut off. Emptiness, nothing at all. How do you manifest this emptiness? How do you manifest this form? You must express this both. You must express somehow. You can express only through form. Express emptiness and express form. You see, for you to understand also, let me explain a little. You see, our consciousness, ultimately, you can't grasp. You see, how can you grasp consciousness? You can grasp sort of sight consciousness, hearing consciousness, feeling consciousness. All those things you can say. But the ultimate dimension of consciousness, you can't grasp. Where is consciousness? Do you say inside? Which point are you saying inside? You are saying from the point of consciousness. You can't put inside. Is it outside? From where, which point of view are you saying outside? Because from your consciousness standpoint, you are talking about outside. In ultimate consciousness, no inside, no outside. You can't talk about that. And where is our ultimate consciousness? Everywhere and nowhere. You see, everywhere. The tree, your consciousness, you see, it extends to the trees, mountains, stars. But where is it exactly? It's nowhere and everywhere. Can you realize that? That dimension, your consciousness, it's the same dimension, the ground of yourself is nowhere and everywhere. Yourself is nowhere and yourself is everywhere. That deep, you see, our self is on many levels. Body, mind, emotions, relationships, spirit, consciousness, on many levels. You see, and the ultimate level, you can't grasp. Yourself, you can't grasp. Who are you? You can't grasp. You see, all the time when you say, who am I, you are standing outside. You can't grasp that dimension. So this koan is dealing with both these dimensions. Emptiness dimension that you can't grasp. But it is reality. You have to manifest that dimension. But form dimension, particularity, you can manifest. That is the koan practice. Now I would like to say something more concretely. How concretely? First, the woman comes. Her name is Jisse. You see, it also applies to koan, but it's a sort of, I will sort of concrete things. Jisse means the true world. True world, what does it mean? Only when the world breaks in on you, when you are open to the world, you can come to awakening. You see, the world has to break you open. What is happening to Guttaye? He is reciting the Dharani, Sutra, prayer, all the time. What does it mean? He is self-enclosed. He is caught with only himself. He is not open to the others and the world. He thinks of only his own spirituality, his own prayer, his own enlightenment. He is not yet open. He is only talking about this sort of recitation. So the spirituality is also dangerous. You can be caught too much in self-centeredness. Be caught by self-enclosedness. You are all the time only my, I, your emotions, your experience, your understanding. You are caught like this. And he is caught in a cocoon of his own thing. And a human comes, breaks through. A world comes, must break through. You see, I give you a story. There are many stories you can tell in my talk which I written. Dostoevsky has a story, the dream of a ridiculous man. Simply, this is a simple story. A man is depressed and he sits in the coffee, drinking in a shop, and then thinks, there is no way for him to live, no solution, no answer. He wants to kill himself. He has got a gun in the house. He wants to go and shoot himself and then comes back going. And a little girl, sort of abandoned. We don't know, the parents perhaps she has lost. He comes, clings to his pants and cries. She wouldn't leave him. She cries. And then he sits down, consoles the girl, and then, I don't know the story, how it goes, sends her sort of away, and then goes back and takes a gun, sits in his room, and thinks of shooting himself. But the girl's image comes all the time. The girl's image comes. And then she thinks, no, at least for the girl I should live. I should live for the world. No, he will not kill himself. And then he decides to change the world. Of course, it's idealism. And one more idealism. He's got one more sort of self-centered imagination. But anyhow, the girl is the world. She comes, touches him, and breaks his self-centeredness open. That is what it has to happen. We need to be broken open to the world. Only when you are open to the world, we can be awakened. Actually, awakening means the world enters you. That is a koan practice, actually. All the time I teach people koan, stop the sound, stop the fire, whatnot. All those, what it means is, the world is with you. You see, it enters you. You are the world. And that means also, when the world is yourself, it calls you for compassion. Care for the world. Be compassionate. Enlightenment and compassion go together. Unless you are compassionate, you are not enlightened. It's only self-centeredness then. I am enlightened, I am great. You are only self-centered. Only when you are opened up to the world and you are really can be enlightened, you reach out into the world, you see. And then that is a major point. Second point, it is difficult. Second point, I myself cannot find. Zen and Buddhism most often downgrade women. You see, sexuality, women are downgraded. Here a woman, a nun comes and challenges him, and he is and he is thrown open, you see, none. And the problem is, Buddhism particularly, all religions, but Buddhism much more in a way, is afraid of sex, afraid of women. Actually, Buddhism, according to the theory of Buddhism, it says, how can a woman become enlightened? It says, the woman must be born as a man and then he can get enlightened. She must take a male body. They said, please go out and then try. See? Otherwise it will be too much. Sorry. Okay. Drink some water and then maybe. And so this is a major problem. And the whole thing is male-centered. Monks are male-centered, only things. And so the women are downgraded. And, monks are afraid of sex and all those things. I don't want to get into this. It's a great theme. It is a major problem, you see. And Zen and Buddhism, how to integrate. At the same time, you cannot throw away women because women are mothers and sisters and wives, so you can't get rid of women. But at the same time, the monks are frightened of women, frightened of sex. And all the time, the purification for the monks is only getting rid of sex, most of the time, you see. And so, what is, how to sort of reconcile things is a major problem. Of course, modern time they talk about sex and gender. Genders, we are all born gender, male, female, and also neutral sex or trans sex or gay sex, all those things, you see. Gender. And then sex. Sex is only sort of female, male, or of course gay and sex. They make all the differences. And so this is a problem. And unless Zen can be reconciled, can sort of integrate sex and women, it's a major problem, you see. My school, for example, Sambhogyodan, my master was a married man. You see, I got the picture in the library, sitting with his wife at the center. Was a married man with the children, you see. And so most of the students in my school are men and women, you see. And there are many women also, Zen masters in my school, you see. And now slowly, Zen also authorizes some women to be Zen masters. But it's a major problem, you see. They are not equal, it's a problem. Also, women become nuns and become Zen masters, supposed to be sort of celibates almost, you see. Supposed to leave out sex and all those things. It is too much problem. I don't want to get into these things. But unless Zen and Buddhism integrates, then you can't live in the modern world, you see. And that's a problem. They are slowly coming. But only I point out, a woman comes and then the Kuttaye awakens, you see. And is awakened and comes and so on, you see. And that point. And then another point I want to say, you see, Kuttaye, it's not simply the finger. You see, in the Mumon commentary says, you see, the Satori means enlightenment of Kuttaye and attendant and the boy and you yourself. It's not, Satori is not in the finger. You see, mere gestures, rituals are not enough. You see. And how do you realize? How do you understand? What is the meaning? We have to sort of realize all those things, you see. So it is much more your realization, your meaning, your understanding. That is the question of awakening. It's not simply gestures, not simply sort of going and coming, doing all those things. That's not enough, you see. That's not enough. At the same time also, remember, the Kuttaye, the fingers cut off, it also, we have to struggle. It's not simply, see, theoretically we can know like emptiness, form, It's easy to know theory. You see, it's not a problem. But you have to struggle, You have to struggle and come sort of awakening. It takes a long time. That means, you must be transformed. It must be our emotionally, spiritually, there must be a transformation, must take place. You see, this Shibayama, he mentions, he was a monk, he finished his university studies and went to become a monk, and he studied with his master, and with his koan, he says, and the monks have to go every day Doksan. They are forced to go to Doksan twice, 3 times. So he went he didn't know how to answer to this koan. He went, and then of course knelt down, and then the master asked, how do you answer? And then, he said, the truth pervading the entire universe. The truth pervading the entire universe. The master with the piercing eyes stood up and drove me out of the room of Doksan Sansen, saying, you good for nothing monk, you had better go back to the college. Throw him out. The point is simply, it's not simply theories. Of course, it's not wrong. Truth pervading the whole universe is not wrong. But it's only theory. Theory is not that as in koan answers. Understanding is good, but it's not enough. You have to struggle, and sort of realize, and sort of, give yourself, be transformed. And then, let me also say about this verse, you see. Kutte made a fool of Tendrio, of course. Momon is exaggerating. With a sharp knife, he chastised the boy. Kore is the god of the mountain, you see. Not this god who appeared to Kutte. This is a different god. This yellow river, that is Yangtze River, it was blocked by a mountain, it seems, you see. And the god of mountain lifted his hand and split the mountain into 2 and let the river run. And the symbolic what it means is, this boy cutting with the knife, it opens his heart and mind, and the awakening happens. And the same thing, you must also, you are blocked with the egoism, ego-centeredness. It must be broken open, and then you are awakened. That is the symbolic thing. But at the same time, he says, the great rich of the Mount Ka was split in 2. And for us, it's a miracle. And Zen doesn't believe in ordinary miracles, There's a story told. Harada Roshi was the founder of the Sabbokyudan school, my school. Harada Roshi, his student Yasutani Roshi, his student Yamada Kovan Roshi, and then there follows, Harada Roshi, the story is told, I don't know how far true, and you have Sri Lanka, Theravada Buddhist monks visited Japan, it seems, and then all the Buddhist monks received him, and then they asked them, how do they practice, and so on, and they said, this way, and the monk, Theravada monk, said, this is how we practice. He closed his eyes, got into samadhi, and raised up from the ground a few feet up in the air. And then he came down and asked the Buddhist monks, do you practice this sort of siddhis, power? Can you do that? No monk could answer. And they told Harada Roshi, this story it seems, Harada Roshi said, I can do a greater miracle. You took the cup of tea, I can take a cup of tea and drink. This is a greater miracle. Do you know that you can walk on the earth, you can lift up your finger, you can lift up your legs? These are all miracles. We don't realize how miraculous these things are. Thich Nhat Hanh, it's of course a monk, living in France, he has said somewhere, he said, walking on water, that, Jesus walked on water, the miracle. Walking on water is not such a great miracle as walking on green earth. You see, walking on green earth is a great miracle. Walking on water, it is siddhi, it is superficial. Lifting a mountain, superficial. What for? Actually, the Zen story goes on. Zen story, actually Obaku, this famous master, he was walking with a stranger, and they were talking together, and there was a river sort of thing. And then the stranger walked over the water, sort of, crossed the river and stood there and looked. This master, Zen master, was standing here and looking at the monk. I said, "Come over, why are you standing there?" And he said, and the master said, "I didn't know that you couldn't do this sort of stupid miracles. Had I known, I would have broken your leg." And he said, walking water, what is the problem? I can take for 10 pies, take a boat and go cross the river. You did all the practice, ascetical practice to acquire these siddhis. What for? You see, we are all going to die. What for these sort of siddhis? Siddhis means powers. Where do you get all these powers? What is the meaning of these powers? You can fly and so on, but you can take a plane and go easily. You can communicate with your phone thousands of miles away. What sort of siddhis do you want to do in this sort of thing? And very often, this practice, meditation practice, people want siddhis, powers, yoga and all those things. And this is also koan practice. That's why they will say, okay, God Korai lifted his hand and broke the mountain too. Do a miracle now, they will say. How do you show a miracle now? And you have to find out. The point is, our human life is miraculous. Our living our life is a miracle. How do you manifest this miracle? Of course, awakening to emptiness, we realize that is a miracle, and everything comes from there. Everything is manifestation of miracle. Open your eyes and become aware. The whole life is a miracle. Everything is reality, is a miracle. We don't realize that. Everything, the Heart Sutra says, form is emptiness. Everything is presentation, manifestation of emptiness. It's a miracle. Christians will say, more or less, everything is God's face manifesting. Can you see that? Can you become aware? Okay, that much is enough. Okay, some more time. Since I talked about sex and so on, women, let me tell you a story. There are only a few stories in Zen about women, not so much. A Buddhist nun in Japan, known as Rionan, was born in 1797. She was a granddaughter of the famous Japanese warrior Shingon. Shingon was a famous warrior. And there's a lot of stories about him, okay. Her poetical genius and alluring beauty were such that at 17 she was serving the empress as one of the ladies of the court. Even at such a youthful age, fame awaited her. But the beloved empress died suddenly, and Rionan's hopeful dreams vanished. She became acutely aware of the impermanence of life in this world. It was then that she desired to study Zen. Her relatives disagreed, however, and practically forced her into marriage, with a promise that she might become a nun after she had borne 3 children. Rionan accepted. Before she was 25, she had accomplished this condition, 3 children. Then her husband and her relatives could no longer dissuade her from her desire. She shaved her head, took the name of Rionan, which means to realize clearly, and started on her pilgrimage. She came to the city of Edo, that's Tokyo, and asked Master Tetsuyu to accept her as a disciple. At one glance, the master rejected her. Why? Because she was too beautiful. Why? Beauty. The monks will have a problem if she joins the monastery. And so Rionan then went to another master, Hakuo. Hakuo refused her for the same reason, saying that her beauty would only make trouble in the monastery. Rionan obtained a hot iron and placed it against her face. In a few moments, her beauty had vanished forever. Hakuo then accepted her as a disciple. Commemorating this occasion, Rionan wrote a poem on the back of a little mirror. In the service of my empress, I burned incense to perfume my exquisite clothes. Now, as a homeless mendicant, I burn my face to enter a Zen temple. Rionan was about to pass from this world, and she wrote another poem. 66 times have these eyes beheld the changing scene of autumn. I have said enough about moonlight. Ask no more. Only listen to the voice of pines and cedars when no wind stirs. Take page 13. Bodhisattva vow.
Bodhisattva vow.
When I look at the real power,
extend